We have with us Professor S. Ganti-S. Murthy ji. Yes, please. Professor Ganti-S. Murthy. Professor Ajay Kapoor ji. Dr. Sunita ji. Dr. Apparao ji. Dr. P. Girvani Amma. And Dr. Rahul Sharma. Rahul ji. We would request the dignitaries to take the seats on the dais. Hari Om and welcome once again. I'm Dr. Vishaka,
assistant professors from the School of Linguistics and Literary Studies, and we will be the MCs for the inauguration.
The 3-day National Youth Conference on Indian Knowledge Systems, organized by Chinmaya Vishwa and Indian Knowledge System Division of Ministry of Education at AICTE New Delhi, is one of its kind as it encourages, guides, and curates platforms and opportunities, especially for young scholars and researchers. Chinmaya Vishwa takes great pride in hosting and organizing this prestigious event.
We welcome all of you, audience who have gathered here, and those who are watching us live online. A special welcome to all our delegates who have traveled from far and near to be with us for these 3 days. Let us hope that the 3 days turn out to be a jnana mathana, a churning of knowledge. We will begin the event by invoking the blessings of the divine grace. Let me welcome our students for the prayer and thereafter to render the university anthem, our Kula Geetam.
Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sam Saraswatye Namaha. Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vidya Samskriti Rakshayeti Nitadhanam Lakshyam Hridaye. Vidya Samskriti Rakshayeti Nitadhanam Lakshyam Hridaye. Chinmaya Vishwavidyapitham. Chinmaya Vishwavidyapitham. Jayati Mahojo Dharanitale. Jayati Mahojo Dharanitale. Sundaram Bandhuram Jnanamandiram. Sundaram Bandhuram Jnanamandiram. चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठं चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठम् पूर्वपश्चिमौ भूतभवन्तौ पुङ्गमयति यत्सुरधाम पूर्वपश्चिमौ भूतभवन्तौ सङ्गमयति यत्सुरधाम पाठनसंशोधनमुखसेव्या पाठनसंशोधनमुखसेव्या विद्या यत्र परा देवी विद्या यत्र परा देवी सुन्दरं बन्धुरं ज्ञानमन्दिरं सुन्दरं बन्धुरं ज्ञानमन्दिरं चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठं चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठम् भरतभुवौ विद्यास्थानानाम् आनयनाय व्यवहारे भरतभुवौ विद्यास्थानानाम् आनयनाय व्यवहारे अभिनवसरणौ समुदयमानम् अभिनवसरणौ समुदयमानम् अतिशयमतिशेते जगति अतिशयमतिशेते जगति सुन्दरं बन्धुरं ज्ञानमन्दिरं सुन्दरं बन्धुरं ज्ञानमन्दिरं चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठं चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठं चिन्मय विश्वविद्यापीठम्
Thank you, students, for the mellifluous rendition. Gurur anugrahenaiva puman purna prakashayet. By invoking the blessings of Guru Parampara and Swami Chinmayananda, let us light the lamp and mark an auspicious beginning for the event. I invite the dignitaries for Deepa Projwalanam.
शुभं करोतु कल्याणम् आरोग्यं सुखसम्पदा द्वेषबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्परं ब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दन दीपो हरतु मे पापं दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते
With the blessings, we proceed further. Now, before I invite Dr. Sunita Grandhi, the convener of the conference, for the welcome address, let me quickly introduce her. Dr. Sunita Ji is the Dean Academics at CVV. She is also the Director, Center for Excellence in Applied Indian Knowledge Systems. And under her guidance, Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth has garnered many projects in the same field. Welcome, ma'am, and I invite you to deliver the welcome address.
Hari Om, Namaste, and a very good morning to all of you here. On behalf of Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, as well as the IKS wing of the AICT of the Ministry of Education, I would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you. The day is finally here. We always say, children are our future that will help in making our country great. And someday they're going to grow up and lead this country to great heights. What better way than the IKS way? So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all our distinguished guests, both on the dais and off the dais, and all our faculty members, all our students from far and near, and our own dear students of Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth. I would like to start extending a very, very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Professor Ghanti Murthy ji. Please give a warm. Our Pro-Chancellor, Professor Girvani Amma. Our Vice Chancellor, Ajay Kapoor. Our very own Professor Gauri Mahulikar. Our Managing Trustee, Dr. Appa Rao. Our very distinguished guests, Srimati Sahana Singh, Shri Raghav Krishna, our faculty, Shri Kartik Sharma, our coordinators from AICTE, Somnath Dandanayak, and Dr. Aditya Maheshwari, who's here from IIM window to watch how we are doing here today. So we are all gathered here on this day to inspire and motivate our young minds to showcase what they have done in the area of IKS. So I'd like to again extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunitaji, for the warm welcome note. Now, I would like to welcome Professor Ajay Kapoorji, the Vice Chancellor of Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, for the presidential address. After completing his engineering degrees at IIT BHU and doctorate at Cambridge University, Professor Kapoor joined academia. He is a world-renowned researcher and has produced over 325 papers, several books, patents, and a university spin-out company. Professor Ajayji is rated within the top 2% of researchers in the world, and his research work has won accolades in the UK and Australia. He has also served as Pro-Vice Chancellor at Swinburne University of Technology in Australia and was recently conferred the status of Professor Emeritus. He has also won several prestigious awards. To name a few, he has won Sir George Julius Award by Engineers Australia twice and T.A. Stewart Dyer F.H. Trevithick Award by the Institute of Mechanical Engineering, UK. Under his able leadership, CVV has scaled new heights. Let me welcome Ajayji for the presidential address. Sir, please.
It gives me great pleasure to see you all here, and especially all the distinguished people, Professor Ghanti Murthy ji, Appa Rao ji, Girvani Amma, and of course Sunita ji, who has put incredible amount of work in organizing this conference. As a Vice Chancellor, when all these things happen, there are a couple of things going on in my mind. So first one is that, are we doing the right thing? How do I decide that? I look at what Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda ji has said. So he has said many times, in many beautiful quotes, he says that children are not vessels to be filled, rather lamps to be lit. So what better way of lighting those lamps than to have the top people in IKS area with us today, telling them about how they perceive Indian knowledge system. what is their viewpoint on IKS. IKS is vast. It's an ocean. We can't actually taste all of it. We can look at it at one point, at another point, but it's unbelievably large, very, very big. In Sanskrit, Vidya captures many things. In English, knowledge captures only one part. Knowledge is only what you can transmit. Skill is another thing. Somebody is a very good dancer, very good flute player, very good carpenter, very good sculptor. That is also part of our Vidya. Another key thing is Indian mindset. Somebody may not have studied anything. A very simple, lowly farmer or somebody, but even that person has got that Indian mindset. We have to be very mindful of all that. And we have to remember that for the last 15, 20,000 years, which we at least know of very well, India has contributed incredibly well to the development of the world. Last 2,000 years data is available. Many of us have seen that. If you see for the first 1,000 years, India contributed about 35 to 40% of the world's GDP. It dropped, reasons are there, and we have to confront those reasons. If we have to convince our youngsters that IKS is the right way to go, we have to face up to that challenge and tell them what did not go right with us, where we faltered. How can we learn from that and then move ahead? India in the past, 3,000 years back, Shashruta, the place where I stay, Varanasi, surgery, and then you see many other things. In many other areas of science, India has given. And now, very beautifully, if I again look at what Gurudev would have said, he said in Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, East should meet West. What he meant was that both are good, both are doing great things, bring them together. Western scientific methods, Eastern wisdom, how can we bring them together? Past and present. Past was glorious, present where we are, future has to be developed from this present. How can we bring that? Pandit and public, he was very clear. As a Pandit, we know a lot of things. Can we make it not only understandable by the public, but in fact useful for them? That has to be there as well. Tradition with technology. We are very traditional, but then we use technology and we have to bring it all together to basically uplift the society, uplift everybody. So those are some of the wonderful opportunities in front of us. And I can't tell you how proud I am to see everybody, not only from Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, in fact from the whole country, joining together to say, let's do something. As a Vice Chancellor, I'll promise you one thing, whatever is required, we will put all resources into that. We will make sure that it succeeds. So with that, let me welcome you here again. I'm very keen to listen to your thoughts, work with you and see how can we light those lamps again. Okay, so let me welcome you again and wish this conference a great success. Hari Om.
Thank you, Ajay ji, for the presidential address. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Apparao Mukkamala ji. As Managing Trustee of Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth Trust, Dr. Apparao is responsible for driving the strategic vision and direction of Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth. He works closely with the Chancellor, Swami Swarupananda ji, the trustees and the Vice Chancellor of CVV to ensure that every single day CVV is focused on providing world-class education built on Indian wisdom. I invite him to formally introduce Professor Ganti S. Murthy, our keynote speaker of the day. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Madam. Subhodayam. Hari Om. Hari Om. Salutations to you all. I bring to you greetings from the Chancellor, the trustees, distinguished faculty, staff, my dear students, and dear Atidis, the guest students, this conference is for you. I was given the pleasant task of introducing the keynote speaker. As you can see, he has a dominant presence. He is well known in the field of IKS. I can say that he is going to fulfill the vision of Puja Gurudev. He said at Adi Shankara Nilayam, at that time there was no university, there will come a big university. Now we are a small university. We will become big to fulfill his vision and his mission. He said this is where the East and West will bridge. I am proud to say and happy to say, my fellow Telugu person, he is the living example of just that. He was a technocrat, an engineer. He bridged and became an IKS person. I know just enough about IKS to stir up a lot of controversy. I believe aeroplanes were there way before Wright brothers ever discovered aeroplanes. I believe metals were there way before metallurgy started. I believe Vedas are the source of all knowledge, known and unknown. They also know what's going to come up in the future. I'm an atheist in that sense. Or Gantimurti has taken the awesome responsibility of proving this to the Western world, that IKS is the source of all knowledge. He has a daunting task. He was appointed as the coordinator of IKS wing in AICTE. I don't know any other more difficult job that to convince these technocrats that high touch and ancient wisdom can be amalgamated and integrated into the contemporary sciences. I can understand doing it in psychology because we know the whole Vedanta. I can understand doing it in economics. We have the Chanakya Arthashastra. I can understand doing it in management. We have the Bhagavad Gita. Doing it in engineering colleges, good luck, sir. You need all of it, you can do it. If you can't do it, nobody else can do it. I will quote the clarion call given by His Holiness Swami Chinmaya. We can, we must, and we will. And I thank you for choosing Chinmaya Vishwavidyapit to hold the first annual youth conference to integrate IKS into all the engineering colleges. We are grateful to you. Try to do it again, not in the too distant future. Most of you may not know that Dr. Murthy was in the US, just like I was in the US. He gave up the job at Oregon State University to come back to Bharat Mata, to serve the nation. The Ministry of Education has chosen the right person to do this daunting task. Dr. Murthy, make it happen. It is said if an Indian introduces an Indian, believe only half of it. If a Telugu fellow introduces Telugu fellow, believe only 1/4 of it. But in this case, believe 200% of it. Thank you. Dr. Murthy, we're ready. Take it. Make it happen.
Thank you, Apparavaji, for the introduction. It is indeed a privilege to welcome Professor Ganti S. Murthy ji, the National Coordinator at the IKS Division of Ministry of Education at AICTE. Ganti S. Murthy ji is a professor in the Biosciences and Biomedical Engineering at the Indian Institute of Technology, Indore. Sir, please, we are eagerly looking forward to your keynote address. I also request to thereby officially inaugurate the event after the keynote address.
I think this is good. मातृभ्यो नमः, पितृभ्यो नमः, गुरुभ्यो नमः, सभायै नमः, सभापतिभ्यश्च नमो नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। न जानामि शब्दं, न जानामि पद्यं, न जानामि गद्यं, न जानामि चार्धं। चिदेकाषडास्य हृदि द्योतते मे मुखानिस्सरन्ते गिराश्चापि चित्रम्। हरि ओम्। Namaste to all of you. Professor Dr. Mukkamalaji had said a lot of things. You should rather believe 1/4 or something like that, because we are all really sadhakas on this path. And so that's basically that spirit I want to start. And that's why I started off with the invocation to our Guru Parampara. And I was so inspired as I was sitting there. I saw our Shankara there, and then it starts with all our Guru Parampara. And speaking here in this place, in this holy place, is a real punya for me, and Purva Janma Sukruta. That's how I feel blessed. And then I was invoking another shloka where I said, "Na janami shabdham, na janami padyam, na janami gadyam, na janami chardham." I don't know the words, poetry, or the meaning. It comes in the Subramanya Bhujanga Stotram. What is coming is basically being inspired by that divinity that is there in all of us. They are coming out as the words, and I'm as amazed by them as you might be. So the mistakes are mine, the glory is to our Paramatma. So I'll be talking about the Indian knowledge systems, the relevance of this in a changing world. So as a students, and I will especially address this to our young colleagues here, few questions that you will have which are very, very natural, and as a professor it is my job to make sure that these things are answered. Is there an Indian way when we talk about Indian knowledge systems? Is that something specific about, so unique about Indian knowledge systems that there is an Indian way? Then why should we study what our ancestors did? And let's say we study that. How is it relevant today? How is it going to be useful to you, to your students, to your colleagues, and to your society? And here I recollect the words of our Mahakavi Kalidasa. He wrote it in Madhukagnimitram. Purana mityeva nasahadhu sarvam nachapi kavyam navamitya madhyam santah pariksham tarat bhajante modah parapratyayine buddhihi. What this means is, Kalidasa said this long time ago. Because I come from Ujjaini, so I need to invoke Kalidasa, that kshetra. So what he said is, he talked about this in the context of kavyas, poetry. He said that just because something is new, we should not discard a new poetry. Just because something is old, we should not grab it and say this. We need to santah parikshan tarat bhajante. The wise do the pariksha and then only accept something. Whereas the mudhas, the unwise, will be, or the fools will be led by the opinions of others. And imagine this. And this is the spirit with which the IKS division goes forward. We look at our traditions with the same, but then the difference is one thing, as Swami Vivekananda ji said. Whenever it is an Indian knowledge system, we go approach that with a shraddha, and believe it to be true and then try to prove it. Whereas if it is a West one, we have that critical this thing. Unless it is proved, we don't accept it. That's the kind of way that we go forward. And then what we call as Indian knowledge systems is essentially the whole knowledge that this Bharata, the civilizational land, has gathered over several millennia. And when I say Bharat, it is not just the geographic, the political entity that was formed in 1947. I refer to the whole Bharat, That was their civilizational Bharat. And then when we look at the paramparas, the knowledge traditions, they're both Shastra paramparas and or Marga paramparas and the Loka paramparas, the traditional knowledge, the systems that are there in our folk songs, tribal literature, all those, and also in different art forms, and also the systematized knowledge systems that are there in our Shastras. And this is going to be very useful for us in the current context, because I wanted to talk about a relevance. I'll try to show that it is relevant today because the world is facing real challenges which are existential in nature. What does that mean? Essentially, these do not mean, when we talk about existential challenges, one of the misconceptions that is there, especially in the when you look at any discourse, especially the Western discourse, is that life on earth is in danger. No, life on earth is not in danger. It is the humanity's future that is in danger. Dinosaurs died, but life went on. If we don't take care of the way that we are progressing, essentially humanity will be wiped out. That is the existential crisis for humanity. Even if you think about self-preservation, this is something that we need to do. And what are the examples of existential crises? If you look around, of course, we talk about the climate change as some of the things that we already are seeing huge amount of increase in the frequency of rains, floods, all the extreme events. That is one. Second thing is we are going to be 10 billion people in another 25 years. And how do we feed them? That is going to be a challenge. And just for the this thing, as a point of reference, India's population was 33 crores when we got independence. Today we are 1.34 billion, 136 crores. So imagine that. How do we feed all of these people? And let's imagine the problem in the world level where we'll be having 10 billion people. That is another thing. Second issue is when you look at the economies, how the economics are working out. The difference between the haves and have-nots has increased so much. The inequalities have become so bad in the world that is going to create some social problems. We don't take care of it. And then the way that we are degrading the environment is another thing. So all of these are essentially existential crises for which, as Einstein said, we cannot use the same thinking that got us into this point. So we need new perspectives and new paradigms. And that I don't just believe, but I know for a fact, because it is the Rishi Vakya, that there is an Indian way that is sustainable and works for the welfare of all. This is something that we need to approach as we go forward. And I will make 4 claims today that Indian knowledge systems provides that unique Bharatiya Drishti, number 1. Second, that it is multidisciplinary, holistic, and grounded in reality. The third one is that it is a rigorous inquiry, a tradition of rigorous inquiry. Fourth, that it is innovative in its approach. I'll try to give you a few examples in each of these, because when you look at it, if we can convince not just the world but ourselves, and then basically internalize these things into ourselves, then the Indian knowledge systems will be basically be something that will be useful not just for India but for the world, and will be able to progress as human. This is the first principle. And this is also the principle in the medicine. First, do no harm. Because a lot of the solutions that we talk about or think about are something that have created this. So this is the first thing that Bharatiya Drishtikona talks about. And Aparoji was talking about the science and blending technology, East-West. This is the Pujya Gurudev's vision as well, that he envisioned that. And when we talk about science, Aparoji was alluding to it. I want to explain that in a little bit more detail here. So when we talk about science, it really has 2 parts. There are scientific principles and there are methods in it. The methods keep evolving, whereas the principles are basically the product of the civilization that has where this science was developed. For example, I'll give you 2 examples there on Ayurveda and all, but the point is, again, we have to be away from the pseudoscience. We have to have a falsifiable theory, otherwise that is essentially not basically science, it is pseudoscience. But the point is, the civilizational thing will give rise to that principles, and this is going to be very important. And this is where the Bharatiya Drishtikona will come, because methods will keep evolving. Just to give you, concretize that, if you look at a human body from an allopathy perspective, why is that? What is that unique drishti? So this is one example of that. So we can talk about it from an allopathic perspective as a digestive system, nervous system, circulatory system, different organs, then different cells, organelles within the cells, molecules, and go all the way up to the molecule level. So it is essentially a reductionist approach. Whereas if you look into Ayurveda, it talks about balance of the three. So it is more of a systemic approach. This kind of a thing will be very clear if I talk, why is that different? So if I ask you to enumerate all the countries that have attacked India in the past and in the future. So essentially you will have a list of countries like Greece, China, Pakistan, all Britain, Portuguese, Dutch, all those countries, right? You'll have France, all those countries, you'll have those. But that list is never going to be complete because you don't know who is going to attack next. So that is one way of classification of the wars, external aggression that has happened on India. Second way of classification is, and this list is called an enumerative approach. This is a very good approach when you look at essentially, we want to look into details. So this is the reductionist approach that allopathy takes, kind of. Whereas Ayurveda takes a system approach, it asks a very different question. It does not ask which countries attacked India. It says, how did the invasions happen? Did they happen by land, sea, or air? Now, what does this do? This not only incorporates what is happening till now, but will also incorporate what will happen in future. So this is what an Ayurveda Vaidya means when they say that I can find treatment for COVID in Ayurveda. It is not because it is written in Shushruta Samhita. It is because that framework allows them to treat this way. This is that unique drishti that we need to bring in that is going to solve many of the problems that we talk about. And especially for complex systems, we need to have what is called as analytico-synthetic or faceted classification. It is a very well-known classification system in science as well. But it is that unique drishti that Bharatiya knowledge systems provide. And again, if you look at food, this is another example. So we talk about proteins, carbohydrates, fats, sugars, all those things. But you also can look at it from a Ayurveda perspective, where we talk about rasa, vipaka, virya, prabhava, all those things. So, shadrasas, and what is the impact of that on the tridoshas. So this is the unique drishti that the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara provides. And Aparoji was also mentioning about blending the technologies and methods. So this is an example of that. For example, when we can look at bhasmas. Bhasmas are used in Ayurveda and Siddha traditions in a big way. So you can study that bhasma prepared as per the Ayurvedic principles using the methods that Ayurveda says, which are on the left side here. So you can see that it is varna, the color, nischandratvam, varitara. Basically, you float that powder onto the water. So you see basically whether the particles are big enough because surface tension will hold it up. There is rekha, purnata, slakshnatvam. These are all different methods that Ayurveda has talked about. Those are the traditional methods. But you also can use a SEM, scanning electron microscope. You can use an atomic absorption microscope, or you can use a TEM, XRD. You can all use all these methods to study the same bhasma. So the methods can be evolving. The way that you synthesize these micro aggregates of nanoparticles, that sounds complicated, right? Let me tell you what it is. It is like, how many of you have eaten motichur laddu? This is what that is. Motichur laddu, the small particles are like the nanoparticles. Aggregate of that is essentially your micro aggregate. That is what that is. So these are very unique particles. So how do you study that? This is what it looks like. So you can actually study that, prepare it with new methods. But then if we can have that perspective of that vata, pitta, kapha, dosha and tridosha's concept of Ayurveda, that is what will bring that unique perspective. And it's not limited to Ayurveda. Even something like intellectual property rights, which we know right now are not really working for vast majority of people, especially when we look into the medical this thing or any of the patents. I mean, they are being locked up and that is driving up the prices of medicines. There are a lot of issues with it. But how did we as Bharatiyas approach it? essentially, if you look at it, I mean, this is based on my limited understanding and study of this area. Some of you may want to take it up. So, for example, if there was knowledge was something that was related to universal good, like something like medicine, it was something like education, it was made free for all people. Any qualified adhikari could go to a guru and learn, and there was never a fee. It was always a guru dakshina after the education, whatever the student was capable of giving. So that was the way that it was done. But then at the same time, the society was expected to support these people. The teachers, basically vaidyas, they were all expected to be supported by the society. So they were forbidden to sell that knowledge because it was a universal good. But on the other hand, if it was, let's say, the Aranmula mirrors that is being made, never told to anybody. Why? Because they are sold for a profit. The society encouraged them to do that, encouraged them to go sell it at a premium. Why? Because they generate revenue, and then that through that they support not only themselves but also the other society that is around them. So when it is related to discretionary goods, because I can survive without an Aranmula mirror, would love to have that, but I mean, otherwise also we can survive. But I cannot survive without medicine, I cannot survive without food. So this one is discretionary. So when we talk about discretionary thing, it was tightly held in knowledge in families and jatis. And jatis essentially, if you want to use a Western term, it's like the guilds of Scandinavian countries. They used to have this. And this was freely traded for profit. And there were all strict punishments for sharing this across the groups that were there. And animalized cotton was one such technology which Europeans took it away. Please read about that story and why protecting dharma is so important. But then there are places where things will fall in both categories, like food, for example. Farmers produce food. I can't expect a farmer to give it away for free. How do we deal with that? So there, when you look at it, if the user of that commodity was at the end point, then the rules of first one applied. If it was somewhere up the supply chain, if it was not the end consumer, then the rules of second thing used to be applied. So a farmer could sell the product, his grain, to everybody, because that was what was grown in his crop in the field. But then what he brings to his home, it is his dharma to share it with anybody who comes home. So if I'm buying the food and keeping it for my personal consumption, it becomes my dharma to give it to anybody who comes, any anarthi who comes. But then a farmer is not expected to give it away for free because they need to have their livelihood too. So that kind of a fine distinction was there. So this is another example of Bharati Drushti, which can provide a model to the world. And I hope I was able to convince you on that part. Now let us go into the multidisciplinary, holistic, and grounded in reality. So there, when you look at it, agriculture and trade, are basically the foundations of any society, even today. And basically the weather, when you look at what is important for weather, the agriculture and trade, especially across the oceans, is that you need to be able to predict the weather, monsoons. And in India, the confirmed evidence of agriculture actually goes back to 10,000 before present, 12,000 years before present. And there is some evidence that indicates it can go up to 25,000 years also, but we need to confirm that. And the importance of water and the hydrologic cycle, the beginnings of that have already been recognized in the Vedas and even in the Shatapatha Brahmana time. Agnirve dhumo jayate dhumat abrahma abhrat vrishti. From the Agni comes the vapor. From dhumo jayate, smoke, and the smoke you get vapors. Vapors become water. Abhrat vrishti. So essentially that is the basic one half of the cycle. But you'll be surprised to know it also in one of in one place in Yajurveda, it talks about the radiation, different types of radiations, which is something that our climate scientists discovered. Maybe it's called albino effect, some 35 years ago only. So it talks about these things. And Vedas considered rainfall as purva chitti, something that you can predict. And again, they had this model of biosphere interacting with the environment and even the seasons, essentially the planetary movements. We had a big tradition. The whole point of this slide is to tell you that we had a big tradition of predicting rainfall, not just now, but also something known as nowcasting in modern weather terminology, but a short-term forecast for a week, for long-term forecast for 1 month, 2 months. Now there were models. If you look at any Panchanga, you can buy that for 20-25 rupees. It will tell you what the rainfall is going to be. It has at least a prediction method 6 months later, because of calendars, Panchangas come in December, January timeframe. They will tell you how the monsoon is going to be. And many of these methods are not simply based on some mumbo jumbo. They actually are based on empirical evidences, observational astronomy. And Varahamihira discusses that Garbhottamam. So earlier people used to say it doesn't, there is no real scientific validity, but then they have figured out that because he was able to say what the rainfall would be 195 days later. He was saying that just like there is a Garbhadharana in a human being, there is also Garbhadharana for the clouds. And that is the Garbhottama point. The whole point was, how could he predict this? There is in fact a Agnishayana ritual in Atharvana Veda where the practitioner is expected to go to the mountain top and look at the Kritika nakshatra around in the Kartika Masa in November time frame. Basically this. What did that? And then if the sky, the Kritika nakshatra was clear, it was something, then they would have less rainfall, and if it was cloudy, they would have more rainfall. That was some ritual there. Why was that? Because at that time there is a jet stream that comes down into the Indian subcontinent. If it comes too down, then it will have an impact on the monsoon. That is what that is related to. So it was based on observation, but it is practiced in a ritual. Then not just that, protection of animals. So the famous verse of Ahimsa Paramo Dharma actually occurs in Anushasana Parama. There is no Dharma Himsa Tathaivacha. That is not correct. This is the correct verse. So I just wanted Ahimsa Paramo Dharma Tatha Himso Parodama Ahimsa Paramam Dhanam Ahimsa Paramam Tapaha. It is told in the context of prevention of cruelty on animals. Ethical treatment of animals. Even Parashara talks about it in Krishi Parashara. And so we see Arthashastra, Kautilya talks about ethical treatment of animals. So all aspects of human civilization we have been doing it. And being an ag engineer, I will talk more about the ag engineering this thing. But because normally you hear about Charaka, Shushruta and all the paramparas in Ayurveda. You may not have heard that the first textbook on agriculture was written in India 2,500 years ago. And basically about 2,600, 2,700 years ago. And we had a continuous tradition of this knowledge, textbooks written. And so this essentially is what is showing you where we brought in weather sciences, Panchanga, observational astronomy, agriculture, ethical treatment of animals. All of these things are essentially solving two main issues, trade and agriculture. You see? They are practically relevant problems that are being solved by the multidisciplinary approaches. So that is I hope I was able to convince on the second part. Now going into the rigorous inquiry, because there is, as Professor Mahadevanji, or first Vice Chancellor of Chinmaya University, he talks about it. There is some kind of a illusion among people or information that the standards of rigor can be reduced when we talk about IKS. I would strongly differ and then say it is contrary to that. When we talk about formal reasoning, these are the different methods that we use in Western science traditions. These are some of the things that most of you are familiar with in basically the pramanas, pramata, pramanam, prama, prameyaha. So essentially, and then also in the Indian traditions. So this is the binary logic that most of the West employs. Nagarjuna had already come up with what is called as Chatushkoti. So you can see the Venn diagram. I just put it in the Venn diagram because those of you who may be from the computer sciences on those backgrounds, you can see this, that you can actually have 4 states, right? Instead of 2 states. And you also can have Ashtakoti logic of Jaina philosophers where you have 8 states. You may ask, what is this going to be useful for a computer scientist? We talk about these qubits now, quantum computing, they are about multiple states. Can probably use this framework to develop logical frameworks for analyzing those things and coming up with it. I don't know, but that is a possibility. And these are all the different pramanas. These are essentially the Pratyaksha, Manamanam, the Shat Pramanas. And each of the pramanas will have detail into this, what is qualified as a pramana, what is not qualified as a pramana, and things like that. And that was just the reasoning and pramanas. There is rigor in mathematics. For example, this is just an example of Bhaskaracharya's Leelavati. This is a method in shloka form of finding the cube root of a number. And that's very algorithmically it is described. And you actually, if you know a little bit of Sanskrit, you'll be able to see what is it that is talking about. So again, this is another one about from Charaka Samhita and Shushruta Samhita. Charaka Samhita. For example, it says you need to verify by observation. And basically what is discussed in text. Unless you verify, you can't really say that you know it really well. And cause and effect relationships, we deal with it all the time. How do we deal that? And there are three things: retrospective, prospective, and concurrent correlation. So the cause should predict the effect, effect should basically lead to the cause, and then both of them should be established. So those are the three studies which are used even now. And this is another one. Look at that statement. Clinical success not backed by evidence is to be dismissed as chance effect. This sounds like a very, very modern scientific statement. It is there even in Charaka Samhita. So the rigor was there. And if you look at correlation is not causation. Very famous, favorite quote of many statisticians. That, right? And these are all basically something that were already there. But then it is very important to know the context. Because if you look at that word, bhakto guna shuddhyati yena tena labdhya cha gunyo gunita phalam. If you just look at the first three words and say bhakto guna shuddhyati, basically it may mean, if I just know Sanskrit, I don't know anything about it, I would say, devotee purified by the gunas and all that, right? But actually it occurs in Leelavati. This is not about bhaktas and gunas. This is about divisors, divisions and all. Basically it's about associative property of multiplication. So it is important to know the technical knowledge as well and know the terminologies. This is where it is important for students specializing in your own disciplines to look at these texts with the knowledge of Sanskritam to understand them properly and interpret them properly. And again, this is another example where Vrikshayurveda of Surapala talks about a liquid manure called Kunapajala. And these studies were done by my lab in US. We did that with a postdoc. We were trying to find a problem, solution to a problem. Let me describe what that problem is in about 30 seconds. Right now we are familiar with the industrial agriculture. What that industrial agriculture, where we put in a lot of nutrients, urea, fertilizers, right? And then we also put a lot of pesticides and those things. What that leads to is it breaks the integral relationship that the plants have with the microbiome or the microbes in the soil. So it basically, plants, if you know, actually put out 30% of their photosynthetic carbon that they capture from the sunlight is actually going to the microbes in the soil to feed them. And what do the microbes do in return? They will mineralize the soil and then pump back the nutrients back to the plant. Now, if you go and add that urea or a fistful of ammonia, nitrate, what that does is it breaks that relationship between these two. And slowly that photosynthetic carbon does not go into the soil. What happens? The microbes starve to death. And what happens after that is, as the soil is devoid of the organic carbon, it becomes more like sand. So look at a piece of sand that flows and a garden soil. The difference between them is the microbiome. And key to that is that maintaining that healthy relation between the plants and the soil. Now, so when you want to switch from that kind of agriculture to more sustainable agriculture methods, it takes about 3 years for that soil microbiome to be rebuilt. So during those 3 years, the yields are lower by around 30 to 40%. So if a farmer was getting 10 bags of rice, he may only get 3 or 4 bags of, 5 or 6 bags of rice. So that loss in yield is called yield penalty, is very critical for the economics of the farmer. If no marginal farmer can afford to do that. So that is one of the biggest blocks in changing back to more sustainable agriculture. So what we did is we were trying to find out methods, because I was working in biofuels and a lot of these biomass conversions and soil health. So we said, let us look at the algae. Algae is basically the green moss that we see around, and treat it in such a way that we can actually see an improvement in the soil microbiome. So we brought that down to 1 season. We did 2 years of high-end research and then we brought it down to 1 season. But the composition of the thing that we made, concoction that we made with algae and all those things after treatment, is essentially what Kunapajala is. I read about it after the fact. And then when I read it, I said, what more gems are there in this? And then we came back and then we were looking into this. So this is essentially, again, there are many, you must have heard about Panchagavya, Sasyagavya, Insafri. There are many variants of Kunapajala that people have made. So these are all different things that we actually can use to address current problems. So again, it's very important to blend both the technology and the knowledge. So I hope I was able to convey that this whole tradition of Indian knowledge systems is very rigorous. It is not for lazy people. It is for people who are rigorous, who actually do that proper study, hard work, and actually blend in both East and West in a proper way, integral way. And we also need to have some fun. So let's talk about the innovative approaches. So most of you may be familiar with Kattapayadi system, right? So yeah, you know that, right? How do you code numbers into letters? And essentially this is developed by Shankara Verma in Sadratnamal. He talks about it. Again, Venkatamaki used this to code for all the 72 Melakarta ragas of Carnatic music, right? This is innovative approach of how do we teach. So I can just remember Gopi Vagyam Madhuvrata Shrungi Shodhi Dhadi Sandhiga, and that's it. And that will give me pi value till 6-7 digits. So it's a very easy way to remember. And this is the innovative way why we used to have everything in versified form, because it uses both our left and right forms. And Sahana ji is here and she has done a lot of research in education area. And this is what most of these educationists are talking right now, that we need to bring this out. And it was there already in our traditions, as Sahana ji has written a very good book on India's education heritage. You should read it. So a small book, but well researched. So this is again the 72 Melakarta ragas where we use the Carnatic raga. The name itself would have given you not just the position in the Melakarta raga, it will also give encodes for the swaras that are there. I mean, it's a beautiful system. These are ways that we used to do. So essentially it shows how we can integrate the phonetics, Chanda Shastra, mathematics, music, you all put it together for an innovative pedagogy. And finally I will stop with one more example. Children like stories. You must have heard about the story of Vagbhata. Koruk, Koruk, Koruk. Who is healthy, who is healthy, who is healthy? And it is Jivaka. Jivaka's response was Jivaka or Vagbhata? Forget that. Hitabhuk, Mitabhuk, Rutubhuk. Koruk, Koruk, Koruk means who is healthy, who is healthy, who is healthy. Mitabhuk, one who eats in moderation. Hitabhuk, one who eats what is good for the body. Mitabhuk, one who eats in moderation. And Rutubhuk, one who eats as per the seasons. What other concept do you need? If you tell this story to the children, that's it. They will know what I need to do for that entire lifestyle will be driven by this. Just one, not even a full shloka, right? You know, look at that innovative approaches. So I hope I was able to convince you that Bharatiya Jnana Parampara provides a unique drishti, is multidisciplinary in its approach, but grounded in reality, provides is a very rigorous inquiry, tradition of inquiry. Fourth one is also innovative. Now, so basically, I mean, these are all the different things that we do at IKS division. So basically what can you do? So what can you do as students? These are all the different things that you can do. You can go and preserve these knowledge systems, either by studying the manuscripts, making sure that they are preserved, or you can research them. We need people who research this. Right now, we have kept these things in libraries. We need to bring them to laboratories. If I have to say what IKS division is doing in one sentence, we want to bring the knowledge systems in libraries to laboratories. We need to produce. We should not be happy that we had Shushruta Charaka 2000 years ago. We should be thinking about how do we produce a Abhinava Shushruta next 50 years. And collaborate with traditional scholars. That requires that blending. We need to develop specific courses so that as teachers, to my faculty colleagues here, we need to teach our students by developing courses, infusing IKS into every example that we give. We may be talking about civil engineering structures. We can use the example of beams that are lying outside. basically Konark temple, or you can take any temple and say, these are the properties of my rock. And then this is essentially what my granite pillar is looking like. What weight does it support? What is the tension, torsion? We can all look into those kind of things, disseminate the knowledge. And for basically my faculty colleagues here, we set up IKS centers. We have last year we set up about 25 IKS centers, and we have we support research projects. And we also, for my young colleagues here, students, we support internships. So please do look out for these internships. They are paid. We pay 10,000 rupees per month, and you also get a certificate from the Ministry of Education that you have done an internship. So very good internships. You can go to the best people. You choose. You apply. They choose. We don't choose. So only the gurus choose whether you can go and work with them. But you can apply to people. So these are all the things that we have, and this is a dhara. We also organize conferences with the Ministry of Culture because we see them as a blending thing. Next month, in fact this month, sorry, we are out of phase. This month in IIT BHU, Professor Kapoorji, your alma mater, we are doing a conference on Rasayana Shastra and looking at how we can rejuvenate this area in next 25 years, and also doing a lot of Jan Bhagidari. We'll be doing another one in Dhatu Shastra and then one on Krishi Shastra next 3 months. So you're all welcome to attend. And just one message for you all will be, if we can align our personal swadharma with the bigger dharma, then we can go to the fourth Purushartha, as Ramakrishna Mission's Dhyayavakya says, Atmano Mokshardham Jagathitaya. And with that, I will thank you all for a patient listening.
May I request the dignitaries on sitting here, please come on the dais. We don't want a keynote speaker to be alone. Please, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for that invigorating, energetic, and inspirational talk. I request our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ajay Ji, and Pro Chancellor, Dr. Girvani Amma, to felicitate our keynote speaker, Professor Ganti S. Murthy. Thank you so much. I would also request I will invite Professor Girvani Amma to deliver the felicitation address. I'll do the introduction after that. She's here, so I'll give it.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I feel short of words to express my satisfaction and appreciation for the commitment Ganti Suryanarayana Murthy has made for the country. This country needs many more scientists oriented to Indian tradition and blending so that science, technology, traditional knowledge come together to solve the problems of the country. We could not have thought of any other better person for a conference of this kind for the youth than Ganti Suryanarayana Murthy. He has original ideas. He has a great understanding from what I heard today. I only spoke to him on phone, and I didn't know him personally, but he was very good when I We spoke to him once or twice about Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth, and I requested him to be present here. That is a long way to go for us, but I just want to make one statement in the presence of the august audience. In the year 5 years or 6 years back, when the university concept was thought, Swami Advainanda ji said, Indian knowledge system is our base for the university and only Indian knowledge system. At that time, I didn't have a good understanding of what he meant because I am from a science background, basically from agriculture science. And Swamiji was talking in terms of IKS. But today I see the future of the world itself depends upon this knowledge that is available. If our economy has been good, as quoted by many speakers and even today in the world, it was because of knowledge economy. We did not convert it into a wealth economy. We remained as knowledge economy. Today we require knowledge economy to sustain and also grow in the country to revive the same old status. We have enough scientists, we have enough philosophers, enough scholars, but we have to come together and look at the knowledge that we have got already in the country and how to pass it on to the younger generations whose minds have not been tuned to this for 14 years in schooling. 14 years of schooling has not told them anything about traditional India to be proud of Indian knowledge. Suddenly, when you introduce a subject of Indian knowledge in the age of 17, when they are totally distorted and only they are looking for a position which gives them prosperity. That knowledge gives them prosperity, the thought itself has not been passed on to them during 14 years of schooling. And secondly, even in a social pattern today, the parents are also not aware to pass on that idea which we had in the older generations. So either the family or the institution has not prepared the minds of the youngsters. This is my observation coming from a university system to see the school system. I realize they are blank. They have not been prepared at home. They have not been living with the grandparents, most of the kids. And they have not been 14 years, they have not heard anything about this. Or maybe they have heard something negative about it also. But suddenly we say they need to develop, they need to be proud, they need to be proud of the knowledge economy this country had. And I wish Kanti Surnath and Murthy Garu to come again and again, treat this as his institute and continue to support and develop an all India coordinated project on Indian knowledge system so that few institutions come together because one alone cannot make the most. And we need to speed up. At the speed at which we are going on Indian knowledge system is too slow. And I just shared on the agriculture knowledge system, the publications made on Indian knowledge. I will be, one of the students will be presenting it. I will share it with you, the books that have been published. On behalf of all of us here and on behalf of the university, I express my gratitude to Kanti Surnath and Murthy Garu for coming here to share.
Thank you, ma'am. Though I had an intro, now that she has spoken, I'll just say that she is one of the most passionate persons that you'll ever meet, as you must have, guessed from the speech that she gave here. So I'll skip the intro and we'll move to the next thing. Yes.
Thank you, Girvani Amma, for the felicitation address. Now, we move towards the close of the inaugural session. We have Dr. Rahul Sharma, Registrar of CVV, to propose the Vote of Thanks. Dr. Rahul Sharma has a PhD in law, and during his career spanning over 2 decades, he has excelled in various academic and administrative positions in institutions of higher learning. I invite Dr. Rahul Sharma for the Vote of Thanks.
Madam. Good morning and Hari Om to all. First, on the behalf of CVV, I extend my warm welcome on guests on the dais and our participating delegate, faculty member and students. And I also congratulate the organizing committee of this conference. So as you are aware that this is a 3-day conference theme based on IKS, Indian Knowledge System, which is the emerging area as per the National Education Policy. So first, I sincerely thanks to our guest, Professor Ghanti Murthy ji, who is the coordinator of ICT in IK cell of the ICT. So he present. I am thankful the kind presence of Professor Ghanti Murthy ji and your presentation based on IKS and highly focused on Bharatiya Drashtikon and Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, which cover our conference theme like application of Indian knowledge tradition in everyday life, science, technology and architecture, health, wellness and psychology, public administration and governance, arts, music and dance, wisdom through age. Thank you, Professor Gurumurthy ji. I extend my thanks to Professor Ajay Kapoor ji, who is also a patron of this conference for your kind support and kind guidance. And I also thank the kind presence of our Pro-Chancellor, Professor Girwani, and motivation speech. And I also so kind support of our trustee, Dr. Aparab ji, who is the managing trustee of the sponsoring body of Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth. And also congratulate to the Dean Academic, Dr. Sunita Granthi, who is organizing this conference successfully, and the all team committee members. They form different committee to successful conduction of this committee. And once again, I thanks to the all our guests, participants, and students. Thanks once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul ji. With this, we come to the end of the inaugural session. But before we break for the refreshments, there are a few announcements to make. I'll make one. Participants who have not yet completed the registration process, I request you to please move to Shankaram and complete the process. And for other announcements, I invite Srinath, who is the coordinator of the conference.
Hariom everyone. I'll make it as quick as possible. I have 10 points to cover. 12 points to cover. I'll do one by one. Welcome to Adi Shankara Nilayam. This is the maternal ancestral home of Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya, where he was born in 788 CE. The date is disputable, but then we believe it is 788 CE. You are the chosen ones from across the country, the best of IKS minds, the best of people who are going to make a difference to the IKS world. So, and this is the right place for that kind of a thinking. This is the right place for that kind of a communion. Yeah, you can clap for that. So this is a national conference, but it is not going to be just like any other national conference. This is a national conference come camp, which you will know what it actually means as the day go by. And this should make us more reflective. No, it is not just about a lot of information gathering, it is also about reflection. And this place is suited for that. And I request all of you to please make the best use of it by exploring this campus in full. And also, if you can spend some time in reflection with a couple of you, that would be very good. Please follow the brochure to the T. We have a very packed schedule that was deliberately done. And please ensure that you keep your time and do not delay at all. So please it is just for 3 days, let us be on time so that everything goes smooth and we get the best of it. Be actively engaged, take the best of every session, converse, interact, make friends, not just with your fellow delegates, but also with the eminent academics who are all here. They have given their time generously for us all the 3 days. Most of our invited guests will be here. So please feel free to interact and get the best out of everyone here. Then please do not leave a session in between. I mean, these are some of the basic things, but I thought it is important to say this. Please do not leave a session in between, including the oral and paper presentations all of you will be doing. You guys have put a lot of effort for this. So we need that kind of an encouragement to give to our fellow delegates as well. Explore the campus, the Illam, where Bhagavan was born, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya was born. The birth room is preserved. So please spend time there. Gurudev Swami Chinmayanji's shrine is there in the temple complex. We have Swayambhu Dharma Shastra temple within the campus. Ma Saraswati at Shankaram. All these are places you can make use of. Then for all the information, we will use our WhatsApp group. We can have interactions there in case of some some message has to be passed on. And finally, please bear with us if there are any shortcomings. In the truest spirit of IKS, let us all come together for for this great thing. And lastly, tea is ready. It is just outside. Please have it, and be back at 11 a.m., which is 15 minutes from now. Thank you so much. Hari Om.
Thank you, everyone.